Hi and welcome to this DCP web tutorial. In today's tutorial I'm going to show you how to use the Foreground Select tool in Gimp 2.10. Okay, so on my desktop I've got this folder, and inside this folder I've got two images which I downloaded from Unsplash. I'll put links to those images in the YouTube description. Okay, let's go ahead and open up Gimp software. And the first thing we'll do is go to this folder and drag and drop the picture of the hot air balloon. Let's drag and drop that into Gimp software. And we're going to use the Foreground Select tool today. So these are the selection options. I've downloaded the latest version of Gimp, so I'm using Gimp 2.10.18, and I would advise you download that. That's the most stable latest version. So I'm going to hold down on my left mouse button on the, normally it's the free select tool here that's selected as default. So I'm going to hold down the left mouse button and select Foreground Select tool. Let's go ahead and select that. And you've got a few different options in here. You can feather the edge. We'll leave that off for now. But after you've done your selection, it can draw a little feathered edge around here if you want that, but I don't think we need that in this particular tutorial. But what I want to do is cut out this hot air balloon and then apply that hot air balloon to a different picture. So I'm going to hold down the control key and use the mouse wheel to zoom in quite close to this hot air balloon. And there's a few different options in here. Now the way it works is, first of all, you've got to tell Gimp roughly what is your selection. So the first tool it gives you is this little tool here. So what I'm going to do is just left click once down here, and I'm just going to draw this little selection, just a rough selection around the hot air balloon. It doesn't have to be like super accurate or anything. So just go around the hot air balloon, something like this, and then we'll close it at the end. So we'll left click here, and it's got this blue color here. You see this this blue color? This is like our mask here. This is the color selection preview mask. So when we click the select, or when we actually hit the enter button on our keyboard, everything in blue Gimp is going to ignore, right? So all this blue stuff surrounding is going to ignore, but it's going to look at this lighter selection and the hot air balloon inside. So you can go to grayscale and you can kind of see the black and white sort of mask that is creating. And we'll click back on color here. And what we want to do now is tell Gimp, what is what content do we want to keep? That's basically what we're doing. Now we need to use the foreground select, the foreground color here. Now purposefully I've picked like this pink color. So you can see there's red in here and there's yellow in here already. So I don't really want to pick red or yellow, and we're using blue in the background. So you want to pick a color that is quite strong, maybe even green will be fine. Like we could use green, that kind of stands out. So let's use green for example. So we'll click OK. It doesn't really matter what color it is here. And now it's asking me to draw my selection inside. So it's giving me the stroke width. So I'm going to select the stroke width to be quite large initially, right? So I want to cover a lot of space quite quickly. So something like this size will be fine. I'm just going to draw around the edges here, like around the edge. And every so often I'm going to let go of the left mouse button. And I'll explain why in a minute. So let's just do a rough selection here like this, right? So we can draw in here and then just cover in the middle like this. So the reason why I let go of the left mouse button every so often is if I start to refine the edges down the side, and let's just say accidentally I go off the canvas or outside of the hot air balloon, I can just press Ctrl Z to undo that. But if I do a whole selection, spend a lot of time and then make a mistake, I can't undo that one little step. I have to undo everything. So I would advise that you let go of the left mouse button every so often. So let's just zoom into the top here, quite close, and we're just going to reduce the size of the stroke to something like this. I'm just going to go around the edge quickly and just try and don't go outside of the hot air balloon, but try and get close to this edge as possible, right? So something like this, and we can do this pretty quick. Normally people would speed this process up in the video tutorial, but I like to just show you how I'm doing this in real time. So if you get bored of me doing this selection, you can either fast forward this video or just set it to a higher speed in the YouTube tutorial and speed it up. So I'm just going to be careful that we don't go outside of the edge of this hot air balloon. So we'll take a little bit of time to do this properly, and the more accurate we are here, the better the result will be, right? But you don't have to get like super close. You can just get roughly close to the edge of the outside of this hot air balloon, and we could probably make this stroke a little bit bigger just to help us cover more space quicker. So we'll go around here, and then we want to get a lot of this here, right down here. So we select all of this here, and got to be a bit careful, don't go outside of the edge of the hot air balloon, right? You want to stay inside, and let's just do down the side here quickly. So I prefer to work from the top downwards. I just find the control a little bit easier for me. So it's up to you how you want to do it, but I just prefer going in this sort of direction in terms of accuracy, right? Just a little bit easier for me. So we'll come down to this side. And remember, you want to get close to that edge, but not necessarily, well, definitely don't go outside of it. Alright, so do a little bit. If you make a mistake, press Ctrl and Z to undo that step. Nice and easy. Okay, we're almost done here. It doesn't take too long. It's quite a basic shape. The more complex the shape is, the more difficult it will be. Normally you want to go for a picture. This tool works best when there's a lot of contrast between the image you're cutting out and the background. So if the background was red, for example, or like a very similar color to the object you're cutting out, then this is probably not the best tool to use. I'm going to show you some more examples using other tools or other methods, but this picture is good for the Foreground Select tool basically. So we've got most of this colored in, and really the tricky part now is these people, right? You can see there's a lot of detail in here, so we want to really zoom quite close into this part. We're going to make our stroke quite small. Initially we can make it a little bit bigger. That's not that big, maybe something like this, and we just draw around the edge here of this basket. Let's just draw down here like this. Remember to let go of the left mouse button every so often, and we want to try and get these people as well. So we'll draw this. Let's just fill in this part here, and then we want to make the brush a little bit smaller and go in and do some more detailed stuff. So let's just make that brush smaller to about this size. And you can see the difference in the pixels of the people and the sky behind them. So this is someone's face right here. So let's make sure we get all of that. And the more information we give to Gimp, the more accurate this cutout will be. So this is all about patience, really, to be fair. You know, you've got to spend a bit of time to do it right. So we want to keep all of these objects. These are quite small objects in this scene. We're going to zoom out a little bit more in a moment. Let's just do some of this over here. You can probably zoom out a little bit more just to see things a bit clearer. We want to get all of this stuff here, right? These are parts of the basket below and also the people inside that basket. So we want to keep this stuff. This is definitely someone's face here. And keep all of this. And this is like the struts, right? Or the parts of the hot air balloon. So let's zoom out a little bit and let's make our brush smaller. Let's set it to like around, probably 2 would be good, maybe even less. Let's just set it to like 2 here, and we'll draw down these parts of the hot air balloon. And there's not much more to do here, so we'll just do this pretty quick. Probably make that brush a little bit bigger, save us a bit of time. And we'll just keep selecting all of this stuff in here. So what you don't select is not going to be kept, right? So you want to make sure you select all the relevant parts. If you make a mistake like that, just undo it. Control Z is your best friend with this, but make sure you do it in steps, right? I'm going to keep all of this stuff here. And we can make our brush a little bit bigger, not that big, probably about 10 will do, and just fill this part in here. Let's see, let's zoom out a little bit here. So I think that's going to be pretty good, a pretty good selection. We can probably tidy this up here just a little bit more. Just try and get as much of it in as possible. Let's just do that here. Let's see. We can get closer to this edge here, you can see, right? So spend the time to do this right and you're going to get a much better result. I think we're almost done here though. I think this is going to be pretty good. I think that's going to be pretty good. You can see we cover most of it. right up here, you want to really get close to these sort of bumps. You need to give Gimp that information that you want to keep these sort of shapes at the top here, otherwise you'll ignore them. So you want to get pretty close to these ones here. It's going to get ignored, right? So let's just try and get in there, because we want to keep those shapes. I think those shapes are good. Right, I think we're pretty much done. So once you've done everything, all you need to do is click this select button. Select. It's going to do some computing, and there's our selection. It's done a pretty good selection. So we'll go to edit, copy, and then we'll create a new layer. Let's create a new layer down here, left click, and we'll set it to transparency and click OK. So we've got a new transparent layer. Let's go to edit, paste, paste here, and then click the anchor button to anchor this selection down. And then we can hide the original image, and now we've got our cutout, right? Let's go to File, Save As. So we should save our work. We've done quite a lot here. This is the Foreground Select Tool, so we're in the right folder. So let's just call this selection -01, and we'll save this work. So we've saved our first part of our project. Now we want to create a new image. So let's create a new image, new. And we're going to set that to 1920 by 1080, so it's just HD resolution. Click on advanced, it's set to 72 dpi, fill with, and we're going to fill it with transparency, and then click OK. So we've got a new blank canvas. We've got our original artwork here, and we've got a new canvas. Let's go to File, Save As, and save this as a GIMP file. Let's just call this comp-01, that composition we call it, 01. Let's save this. And then we'll go to our folder and drag and drop this picture. This is a picture of London. So here we've got a picture of London. Let's hold down the control key and use the mouse wheel to zoom out to around this sort of size. And this yellow box represents the actual size of the image. So we want to go to our scale tool. So left click here and click scale. And then we want to set the opacity for this image down. We want to set it to about 50%, so we can see the checkered box for our canvas size. Let's left click here and then grab the handle and drag it inwards. The reason why we set the opacity down is if you don't, you can't really see the canvas size behind it. It's hard to resize that way. So I like to set it to around 50%, and then you can zoom in a bit here, and we can probably bring this in some more to about here, right? Somewhere like here, and we'll click scale, and then we can set the opacity all the way back to the top. Click on the move tool, click on this picture, then hold down the shift key and use the arrow key to move the image in large increments, and then use the arrow keys on their own to move in smaller increments. Let's click here and then create a new layer, and that layer we're going to set it to transparency and click OK. So we've got another new layer here, and we'll go back to our hot air balloon, and let's just zoom out a little bit here, and we'll click on that hot air balloon, go to edit, copy, or Control C, go back to our new image, and then go to edit, paste, or Control V. Let's paste that image in here so we can see the picture, and we're going to anchor it down. So we need to use this anchor tool, and it will anchor down to this layer. You can name this layer, I'm just going to call it image, but you can call it balloon or whatever you want, and we'll select it, right? So we've got it here. Let's hold down the control key and zoom out. So this is really the hot air balloon image, and we want to scale that. So let's click on the scale tool, make sure the image, this image or the hot air balloon is selected. Let's click here, and we can scale it down. Let's say we scale it down to around this sort of size. I think will be good, around this size. We'll click scale, and then let's click on the move tool, and let's just move that hot air balloon. Right, so you can see the original size of the image, this dotted line, and really we want our image to just be, or the layer size to just be the size of the hot air balloon. So let's zoom in a little bit. Let's go to the rectangle select tool and draw a little rectangle shape around this hot air balloon, something like this, around this size. Just make sure you cover the whole hot air balloon, and then go to layer and crop to selection, and that will just make sure that the image or the layer inside is the size of this, or just a little bit larger than the size of the hot air balloon. We'll go to select and then none, and now you can see the dotted line is the size of this hot air balloon. And let's click on the move tool, and now we can grab this object and move it into some place. Let's say they're having a nice little hot air balloon journey across London. Okay, let's click on that image. We should go to file, let's see, file, save. Let's just save our work, and really this normally when you're done with a picture inside of Gimp, like if you've got two images open, you should close the other one. It will just save a bit of memory. So let's close that picture because we're finished with it. And then we can do a little color correction here. We don't have to do this, but let's click on this picture, the top image. Let's go to filter. Now, a wise thing to do, Gimp is destructive, so in Photoshop, when you change colors of objects, that is called non-destructive, so you can easily undo those changes. But in Gimp, when you apply some sort of color effect or adjustment, it applies it to the image and you can't really undo that. Well, you can, but you can only do it after you've done the work. If you save the document, you can't come back and undo that. So what I normally do is click on this image and duplicate it, create a duplicate copy, and then I'll hide the original one, just hide it, and then we'll select this top copy and we can make adjustments. So let's go to filter. Let's let's go to color and then hue and saturation here, and then we have the hue and saturation tools, and we can increase or decrease its lightness, right? It looks like quite a sunny day. This looks quite a little bit dull for me, so I'm going to increase the lightness, and we can increase or decrease the saturation. So I'm going to bring the saturation down a little bit, let's say, or increase it just slightly, and the lightness, you don't want to go too far, you don't want it to be too dark, so we're going to set it to around here. I think something around here, I think that's a bit too much. Something around here I think looks pretty good, and we'll click OK. So if we were to enable the hot air balloon below, we can hide the top one and you can see the difference between them now, right, as you've changed it. So that's pretty much it. So if we click on the background, now you can see the whole sort of composition. Normally I have like a default background down here, so when I click that, I can just see the little yellow dotted line, but I can see all of the composition correctly. You can click on this top image, the one below is hidden, so you can click on the move tool and you can move that hot air balloon into any position. Probably around here would be pretty good. If you think it's too large, click on the scale tool, click on this image, you can scale it down, maybe have it in the background over here somewhere. Click the scale tool and then click the move tool, and you can move it into position somewhere here. In theory, you could be a bit more creative and you could place like the hot air balloon behind the Houses of Parliament here, somewhere like around here, and then you could do a layer mask and layer the hot air balloon behind the Houses of Parliament, right? You could do other things like select this image, duplicate it, make a copy of it, select it, and then you can go to this tool here. Let's have a look. Go to this tool and then you could flip the image, flip it, so we'll click on it so it's facing the other direction, and then you can click on the move tool, grab it over here, and then you can click on the here and go to the scale tool, scale it, and you can click here and scale it down, so there's one right in the distance. Click scale, click on that picture, go back to the color, hue and saturation, and then we can change the hue to a different color. We can maybe make it like a sort of a greeny sort of color in the background, and then click OK. Now you've got two hot air balloons in your scene, right? One that's closer, one that's in the distance. Maybe having a little race across London. Who knows? So your choice, is your artwork, so you can do whatever you like with it, right? So that's how you go about using the Foreground Select tool in Gimp. I hope you find that useful. It's a little bit of a tricky tool to use. It's not always good to use that tool. It depends on the image, right? So let's just go to File, Export As, and we'll export this as a PNG file. Should be fine. We'll call it comp01. Let's just export it. Let's export this and click Export. Let that save down. And we can minimize this. And now we should have that comp1 in here. Alright, so we've taken this image here, the background, and we've taken the hot air balloon, and I've purposely picked this picture because you can see there's a good contrast between the image itself, what we want to cut out, and the background. So when you've got an image that is quite complex, like this bus, if you wanted to cut this bus out, you'd probably better off doing a layer mask or using the lasso tool or some other type of selection tool. There's a lot of there's a lot of darks between the images and the ground and stuff like that. So the Foreground Select tool wouldn't be good for this, right? It just wouldn't be good for this particular selection. But if you wanted to cut out the sky, for example, because the sky and the buildings and everything else has a lot of contrast, then the Foreground Select tool would be a good option for that. Right, so this is why I picked this image to show you an example where it's a good example of how to use that particular tool. And we took those two images and then we ended up with this image with the hot air balloons inside of there, right? You can go and do a bit more color correction and maybe boost the colors in this background and try and get them to match a bit better. I just wanted to show you a good rudimentary example of how to use that tool. So let's close this folder. That's the end of this tutorial. I hope you find it useful and I look forward to seeing you in the next DCP web tutorial.